Success Insight shares the stories of the people with passion and drive who make things happen in the world. Here's your host, Howard Fox.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Success Insight podcast. Our guest today is Brad Richard. Brad is an author, a speaker, a mentor, and he's a podcast host. Brad is the author of Man at 50, A Journey of Crisis, Revelation, and Survival. And Man at 50, this is Brad's autobiography. Now, it is not for the faint of heart. There's some discussion of crisis, this revelation, survival. But at the end of the day, Brad's goal is to inspire, encourage, and give hope to the reader. Now, as I mentioned just a second ago, he also hosts his podcast, and this is called Men on a Mission podcast. Now, Brad is an Army veteran, and this podcast is focused on the men, the veterans, and their families because soldiers have a lifetime of bond, their commitment, their honor for one another, and their oath. And this, if you've talked to any veterans yourself on the street, on podcasts, interviews, on jobs, you know that the oath means something and it continues for the rest of their life. And so the goal of this podcast is building better, stronger, and healthier men and women, because there are many veterans out there who are women, and really just excited to have Brad on the podcast. We exchange conversations, comments through the social sites, and I'm really excited to have him here with me on a real interview. So Brad, welcome to the Success Insight podcast.
Thank you, Howard. It is great to be with you.
I have to say a really heartfelt thanks is whenever I post my podcast, I share it on my social sites, you're always one of the first to like it, provide a comment. And as a fellow podcast host, as an author, a speaker, it means a lot because at the end of the day, and we're going to talk about this, we have to support each other. And I'm really excited just to kind of learn more about you and your work. And, perhaps you can start with, just give us a kind of a 30,000 foot view of Brad Richards.
Oh, wow.
That's a big view, by the way.
A big view and covering many, many years. So real quick, as far as my book goes, Man at 50, the title of my book is very literal. I came into writing this book, this autobiography, based on the first 50 years of my life. I was a very codependent, non-masculine, non-male entity, for lack of a better word. 50 years of codependency. There was child abuse in my background, physical, sexual, and mental abuse. And I spent the first 50 years being a child in a man's body, not making decisions, choosing bad relationships, bad marriages. I had 2 marriages that failed, and I never stepped into that role of father, husband, adult male. I did have a significant transition in my life, surprisingly, at the age of 50. And I basically stepped into the role of an adult. And I did that by using a system that I created for myself. And it's a 9-step process. I refer to it as going back to move forward. For the military people that listen to my podcast, it's retreat, regroup, and advance. Those are military terms. Military people can relate to them a little better, but it's the exact same message. And that's what I did. I went back to little Brad and found him. We had a conversation, and I began to self-parent myself. Not that my parents did anything wrong or that they were bad parents, but I began a new journey of self-parenting and assuring little Brad that he was protected, that I would not allow anyone to hurt him anymore, and that as an adult, I was going to be 100% responsible for him moving forward. And that freed up a lot of the codependency issues that I had in my previous 50 years. And so that led into the book. And it was a therapeutic exercise going back through those 50 years from birth all the way up to 50, and the transitions and the things that I went through. And then, of course, not giving too much away, the book goes through that transition and I end up in a completely different place. So that's a short version of it.
Okay. So I am curious about a couple things, and if we can perhaps just delve into this just a little bit. Was the revelation, at 50? I'm a little bit older than you are, but I can appreciate the revelation, these aha, or in coaching, we like to say the aha moment. But what was that revelation for you that I needed to do something different or I needed some change?
Well, the revelation started with a song. The song is by a group called the Pretenders, and the title is I'll Stand By You.
Okay.
And the first time I heard that song, I'll Stand By You, I completely melted down. And it touched me on a level of emotions that I didn't understand and that I was very fearful and scared of. And the revelation was that message resonated with my soul and with my little me, with my little person. And that became my mantra to him. And if you listen to the lyrics of the song, it's very applicable, very appropriate. And that was my message to him, that I will stand by you. I will let no one hurt you. Nothing you confess can make me love you less. I know that you're in the dark, and that's okay. I've been there myself. I've been there too. And those are some of the lyrics. But I had to embrace that strong emotion. And once I began to give to him that adult protection and compassion and empathy and understanding, and once he knew that I was going to start treating him with respect and love and honor, and more importantly, I was going to be responsible for us as a team. And our dreams and our aspirations and the things that we wanted was now my responsibility. And I was going to bring him with me as we move forward. So that was the revelation.
As you set out on this new journey, was this a journey of one, or were there others coming along with you on the journey to not to fix anything, but to be supportive, to ask questions, to help probe a little bit, or was this yours and yours alone?
My second marriage, my second wife was very supportive of me changing my childish behaviors. She wanted to be married to a man, not a child. And so in her own way, she was part of that. But it was a solo event. It was an endeavor that I had to take on myself, and no one else could fix me, and no one else could fix the damage that I had inflicted on my little self, on my little Brad. So it was very much me and me alone.
So now on this journey, you writing the book can be very cathartic. Your book, as we shared earlier, it's an autobiography. Definitely, there's some catharsis coming from it. You also contributed to a couple other books, the Blue Talks book, Business Life in the Universe, and the other book you contributed to, Guts, Grit, and the Grind. And tell us a little bit more about those two. Do those fit into part of this revelatory journey that you're on?
Yes, the co-authoring of those two books had to do with a person's little me, or their little selves. And for me, I focused in on my relationship with my father, which is in my autobiography. But the lessons I learned from my father's life and my father's death and passing on is what those lessons is what I contributed in those two books. And that message is very simple. I'd like for you to get those books and read my chapter, or read the whole book, but read all the authors in there. But
Sure.
The message that I conveyed in the two books is I outlined my father's life as one of regrets, fear, and a lot of self-deprecating, self-harming thinking and feeling. And the story that, or the lessons that I learned is I watched my father die and leave a very, very frightened man with a lot of baggage. His little man in him, he never, ever, ever found his little self. He left that behind, 80 plus years. He left him behind. And that began to clarify my mission. What I do is not just for me, but it's also for my father, who is no longer in my life. But I carry him with me every day. And I'm doing this not only for myself and other people, but I'm doing it to give his meaning, or give his life some meaning. Because I came to a point where I knew that I could not leave all of this past behind. I didn't want to finish my life and have all the things left behind that were unsettled like he did. And so that was a big leap forward. And that began the work to deal with it, write about it, heal, and move forward, because that was my commitment to myself. I will not leave this world like he did. He was shattered and very scared and fearful. And just to give you one aspect of that, when the doctors were unable to operate on his heart and on his brain due to some medical circumstances that he would not survive any type of surgery. The family decided to pull everything and take him off all the machines and let him go. He was supposed to survive, according to the doctors, maybe 24 to 48 hours. He was on morphine and ice chips, so his lips didn't crack and his throat didn't get dry. And that was absolutely all he had. No food, no liquids. And he stayed alive for 10 days. And it was all fear-driven. And he fought his passing for way, way past what he should have. And the doctors were just amazed that he held out that long. And so that's the magnitude of the level of his fear and his regrets and his sadness. And so, that's the point that I cover in those other two books, how important it is to connect and don't leave all of these things in your heart and your mind behind. Very important to get it out now and address it.
I had the opportunity, as I was doing the research for our episode today, Brad, is to go back onto your website. I was listening to a couple of the YouTube, the podcast episodes that you recorded, and really a very poignant story. I mean, my dad passed away in his 60s. He had lymphoma and some little similarities, but I think, if I was to ask my dad, looking back, perhaps not as fulfilled as he ever thought he would be or should be. And I can imagine that is hard. And I somehow, it's again why I think your story is very fascinating. As I look back now in my life, I am just turned in my 60s. And it's only since I had my career change that I realized, wow, I am definitely the cause of some of the baggage that I'm carrying around. And so much of it comes from growing up, our parents, and, sometimes their parents, whether they should have gotten married or not, or did they know how to be parents? Did they know how to be friends, lovers, and so much of who we are as adults are the artifacts from us growing up, and so I love this lesson that you're conveying about, man at 50 and talking to little Brad. And as I was sharing earlier, I was out at the desert yesterday taking pictures and just seeing all the stars. I'm thinking, this is great. I can't believe I took me all these years to really get out here and just be with some friends, enjoy the experience, and say, this is not bad. But and if we don't discover ways to do that, then we continue to live not serving our true potentials. I am curious now, this journey that you have been on, how is this translating into your current work and the folks that you serve? I mean, you're very passionate about serving, other veterans. And I know I've had a lot of veterans on the show, and it takes a specific mindset to want to go into the military. It can be a lifelong experience. It could be 4 years. Thank God I'm out. But that experience shapes you going forward. And how is your experience shaping your work today with the veterans?
Well, as far as the clients that I work with, I take them through the same 9 steps that I took, and I don't ask of them anything that I haven't done myself. And so I do take them through the same 9 steps, and for some of them, it is extremely difficult to go back. I hear this quite often. It's like, I have blocked that out. I have no memories of my childhood. It is too painful to revisit. And it's very difficult for them to even entertain the thought of going back and reliving or trying to get a grasp on what happened and how do they change it now as an adult. So that's one aspect that I'm working with them on. When it comes to the vets that I work with and some of my other clients, they want to move forward as adults, and they are struggling with adult type issues, and they struggle with the concept of how can my little person help me with my adult issues. They don't know anything about that. They don't understand what I'm going through as an adult. And where we go with that line of thinking is taking them back and kicking in the self-parenting module, where they go back, they enter into a self-parenting structure. They assure themselves that they're that they're going to protect their little person, and they re-identify their dreams, hopes, and aspirations that they had as a child, and then they put a plan, or I help them put a plan together to move forward in their lives with that goal or that dream in mind. Now, it may not be the exact thing they thought about as a child. I wanted to be Elvis as a teenager. And for a while, many years ago, I was an Elvis Presley impersonator, and I wanted to be in the entertainment business. The singing and making people laugh and cry and touching them, on an emotional level. That's what I wanted to do. That's what little Brad wanted to do. And now I am doing that, but in a much different way with the same result. I am reaching people. I am helping. I am hopefully bringing them joy, hope, inspiration, and I'm willing to cry with them and laugh with them. And so in a sense, it's one and the same. And so I had to change my perspective on, I can accomplish my goals and dreams that I had as a child, but it doesn't have to be in the music industry. It doesn't have to be in the movie industry. What other ways can I live out that passion and that dream and satisfy little Brad so that he's happy and he's secure and he's excited about the future. And he has an adult in his life that's guiding him and taking him on this journey. And I came up with what I do now. This all happened after the book. It manifested and it just happened naturally. And so I know it's right. I know I'm on the right track, and it's filling that void, that was there for 50 years prior to me starting a new life.
And how are you using the podcast, the Men on a Mission podcast, to, further, evolve the story and this help that you're offering, for the veterans?
Okay, now as far as the podcast goes, the guests that I have on the podcast, just to give you a couple examples, I've had an organization on the podcast called Pets for Vets, and they actually coordinate getting service animals to veterans who are in need, that need something or someone besides themselves to love and take care of and to protect. Just like in the military, they love their country. They were there on a mission. They were there to protect not only the country, but they were there to protect one another, protect your buddy. And so Pets for Vets is a great organization, and veterans really connect with service animals, mainly dogs, but some of them do have cats as well. It gives them something to direct their love and attention, and it takes the attention off their mental issues or their heart issues that they're struggling with, and it gives them a surrogate, something to love and take care of, which also ties back into childhood. Because as kids, most of us had a pet that we loved. It was, they were our buddy, and so they're helping adult veterans with pets. Another organization that I've had on is called Code of Vets. And Code of Vets was started by Gretchen Smith. She is a Air Force veteran. She lost her father to PTSD at the age of 57, which is the same age as me. And she is a nonprofit organization that raises funds for veterans in need, from anything from eviction notices to light bills to car maintenance, to utilities, and on and on and on. And the money she raises, she sends directly to the veterans and gets them out of financial crises in their lives every day. And so she is touching the lives and hearts of many, many veterans. And so my guests are geared towards providing veterans with resources and tools and hope, and hopefully inspiration for them to, number one, stay alive, and number two, reconnect with that inner leadership that they have in the military, and to give them a mission, which is, the mission is them. And the mission starts with them, and then they can fight for themselves and then begin to fight for others, just like they did in the military. But it's fostering leadership. And that's my goal of the podcast, is to regain and build stronger leaders in our veterans. They're worthy. We love them. We respect them. We should honor them. We should take care of them. But I also think that they have the potential to be amazing leaders in our cities, our counties, and our states. They have that seed of greatness within them, and they have the right mindset, because the military is all about service and protecting the guy next to you or the girl next to you, and being willing to die for that person. And that they're willing to die for you as well. That's a strong human bond that we don't have in the civilian world.
Love it. So true. And I mean, I am not a veteran, full disclosure. I think if I could go back, I would tell my 18-year-old self, should have gone into the military. That's one thing I've learned from all the conversations on the podcast, and I even prior to the podcast. How are you taking this great work now, and how is it being shared with an even larger audience? Because you do some one-on-one, some group work. So how is that showing up in this offering, so to speak, that you have?
Well, I have been on a few virtual stages with Speakers Unite, and Blue Talks has a virtual stage. Amplify Your Message. I've been a virtual speaker on their virtual stages. I wish with the whole COVID thing, speakers have kind of they've had to revise their approach, like a major paradigm shift, and they're doing things quite differently. Everything is kind of virtual now. Some of the speaking venues are starting to come back. Part of the goal, a subchapter of my goal, is to get in front of larger groups and speak in person. Now that the COVID is wrapping up, hopefully. But I have reached tens of thousands of views on the virtual platforms with Blue Talks and Speakers Unite. That's one way. The podcast does reach a lot of people. Matter of fact, the podcast got accepted this morning on Pandora.
Great.
So it is now on Pandora. I think it's on about 14 different platforms, and I have listeners in 38 countries.
Fantastic.
Because we have veterans all over the place. So, I'm reaching a bigger audience. I do like the one-on-one, but the one-on-one is very exhausting to take that journey. I am more than willing. I'm 100% committed to any veteran, and I will walk all the way back with them as far as they can go, as far as they want to go. And then I'll walk with them as we move forward, so that's the one-on-one is probably more fulfilling, but moving forward in the future, I do want to get the message out to a larger group of people. I don't want people to follow me forever. There are, and I'm not going to use names, but there are leaders and self-help people and the motivational side of the world, and they have people that have followed them, and they attend their seminars and they buy their stuff, and they do that for years. I've seen him or I've seen her for 12 years straight, and it's like, you need to cut the cord because you should be moving on with your own stuff, with your own exciting things that you're doing. So with that being said, my goal is not to have lifelong or lifetime followers. My goal is to create leaders and inspiring people so that they can go on and reach more people. I'm in a place in my life now. My second half of my life is how I look at it. The first 50 years was very inactive, but the second half of my life is one of service, and my life is one of serving other people. And that's my goal. I don't want someone to follow me or be a client forever. If they are, then I'm not doing something right.
I can appreciate that. Brad, I'm curious now, I'm a big believer in groups and in masterminds. And I was looking through the website. Tell us more about your veterans only group, and you call it Chow Hall. Tell us more about that.
Okay, I have a group that's a veterans group on Group Me, and it's basically a text thread or a chat thread, and it is called Chow Hall. That means something to veterans because that's where we went when we were at the Chow Hall eating. That's when we talked about back home. We talked about our parents and our brothers and sisters and our wives and our girlfriends and or boyfriends or husbands, whatever the case may be. But the Chow Hall was one place that we could separate ourselves from the military mission and sometimes the burden of being away from our loved ones. So Chow Hall is for veterans. They can join the group. It's free. It's an absolutely free group to join. And they can say hi. They can pop in and see what other veterans are talking about. If they need somebody to talk to, they can enter the group and just basically tell us how they're doing, tell us what they need, if they're feeling down, if they're feeling frustrated, and have that camaraderie. Visiting the Chow Hall group is like going to Chow and seeing your other buddies across the table from you. And there's a lot of support, there's a lot of love, and there's a lot of camaraderie that happens there. So that's what the group is for. And it is absolutely free. I also I have a video course that goes through the 9 steps and an audio course that goes through the 9 steps. And I give those to veterans absolutely free. That's hours and hours of work and content that was put into those courses. And they are on Thinkific, but the courses I do give to the veterans for free. And I offer free mentoring and consulting with them. If they get the course, then, I'm there for them to go through it with them and answer any questions and keep them on track. So it all kind of comes together for them.
Fantastic. Now, all of this, these resources, access to the podcast, these can all be retrieved via your website?
Yes. Everything is, I try to put everything together on the website. The website I built myself. So it was a very steep learning curve.
Okay.
But I do have 99.9% of everything on the website. And then my Twitter and my LinkedIn page are really tied into the website as well, and the podcast.
Fantastic. Now we will provide a backlink as well to your website, bradrichard.net, which is part of the website, but to the podcast, and as well as to your LinkedIn and your Twitter. Brad, any other ways for our listeners to learn more about you and your work, or is this pretty much the website and your social sites?
That's probably the best way. I do have a YouTube channel. The YouTube channel, it is, each episode is released on YouTube as just a still shot. It's a split screen image with the audio in the background, but I do put the podcast on YouTube. And I also have a blog, and the blog is the show notes and the episode details from the podcast. The blog is on the website. And so, LinkedIn, Twitter, my email is out there. I do offer 20-minute one-on-one, which is complimentary. And and then I offer mentoring on an hourly basis. So,
great.
There's lots. The website is definitely, the best way to get a hold of me.
Fantastic. Well, once again, we'll provide all the backlinks to your social sites as well as to your book pages on Amazon so that our listeners can check you out. So, Brad, it's been a pleasure. I'm so glad we were finally able to move beyond the social communication. Well, we're virtual communication. So we've virtually broken bread together. And so I want to thank you for taking the time to join us on Success Insight.
You're very welcome. It was my pleasure. And continued success to you. I know that your podcast is amazing. Your YouTube channel is amazing, and it's an honor to be on with you. And my last statement to your listeners, or my last point to your listeners, is love your little person. If you don't know who they are, you need to reconnect with the little person that's within you. And it does start there. And I know it'll be painful, but that is the best place to start changing things around and making things better.
Fantastic. Well, we will definitely take that to heart. And to our listeners, we hope you take that to heart as well. I mean, Brad is speaking from experience and with his life, and now he's impacting others as well with that message. So once again, Brad, thank you. And folks, we've just been chatting with Brad Richard. He's the author, speaker, mentor, podcast host. He's the author of Man at 50, A Journey of Crisis, Revelation, and Survival. He's a contributing author of the Blue Talks Business Life and the Universe, as well as Guts, Grit, and the Grind. Also, very much a passionate supporter of the veteran community. And so definitely want to check out his podcast, as well as his Group Me productions of Chow Hall. And really and again, with the podcast, Men on a Mission. So we're going to provide all of these backlinks to you, especially through his website, bradrichard.net. So lots of great information today. And As I've alluded a couple times, Brad and I have kind of interacted with each other virtually via our shared interests, the podcast platforms. And I'm very grateful that he's been able to take time out of his day to join us and kind of chat about his work and the impact he's making. So we hope you feel the same way about the content in this episode. If you can leave us a comment on successinsightpodcast.com. We're also on LinkedIn and Facebook on our Success Insight Podcast pages. We're on all of the major podcasting platforms, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Pandora. We are also on Spotify, and what's special about Spotify is our playlist, and we'll have Brad's episode on the Mind, Body, and Soul playlist. So do check us out there, and we're also on YouTube. And we really want to know what you think about not only our podcast, but episodes like this with Brad. So folks, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, go out there, have a phenomenal day. And we hope to see you again soon on the Success Insight Podcast. Take care now.
Success Insight is a production of Fox Coaching and First Story Strategies. Find us online, successinsightpodcast.com.